In this video, I will show you the Microsoft PowerPoint Home tab and ribbon in depth. If you really want to learn Microsoft PowerPoint inside and out, you need to master the tabs and the tools that are on the corresponding part of the ribbon. This video is just one in a series that will teach you each tab and ribbon in Microsoft PowerPoint. Let's get started. So here I am in a PowerPoint presentation that I've been working on, and I'm going to continue to work on it as I look at the Home tab and ribbon from left to right. And we're going to start in the first group. As you can see on the PowerPoint Home tab and ribbon, there are many tools, but they're divided up and organized in groups. So this is the clipboard group. We've got the slides group, the font group, etc. And there are some tools that don't necessarily have a specific group that they're part of, but we're going to work from the left group all the way through to the far right. So here in the clipboard group, it's pretty typical. It's what you would expect. We have some tools like copy, cut, and paste, and the format painter. Let's see these tools in action. So I'm going to go here to this second slide, and as soon as I click on the slide here in the slide panel, the clipboard tools and options become active. I can now go up here and just click to copy this slide, and then I can click paste to paste it. Now next to the copy button, there's a down arrow, and if you click on that, you can duplicate a slide. It's quite similar, but not exactly the same as copy. And it does, in a way, save us another step of clicking paste. In addition to copy and paste, we have cut. So I've clicked on this slide, and I can now click on cut, the pair of scissors, and then I can click down here and choose paste. And so that's a way for me to basically move a slide to a different part of my slideshow. Another thing to be aware of is that when you do copy and then decide where to paste, you might click, and then you can just click the paste button here and it will simply paste what you've copied, or you could go to the bottom part of the paste button and you can choose to have the pasted slide use the destination theme. You could keep the source formatting, keep the formatting of how it is right now, or you could paste it as a picture. So each of those will give a little bit different result. You can see what happens when you paste it as a picture. It goes right onto the slide that was near where I had selected. And these other options are also useful sometimes, keeping the source formatting or use the destination formatting. So each of those will produce slightly different results. Now, in addition to copying, cutting, and pasting slides, of course you can do the same thing with actual images and text that are on those slides. So I could select this avión and then choose to copy it, choose to paste it. Now I've got two of them. Or why not just click here on the arrow and duplicate the airplane and so forth. Okay, now let's move on to what is perhaps the most useful of the tools here in the clipboard group. It's the format painter. Let's say that I end up with more text on this slide than what I currently have. Okay, so I'm just going to copy paste el avión so that I've got it twice, and then I can add some more text to it. So now I've got two pieces of text, each one in its own text box. Now, what if I decide to change the formatting for el avión, this first word or phrase? With that highlighted, I'm going to go up here to the Home tab, and I'm going to skip over to the font group, and I'll just make it not bold. Maybe I will change the font color, and I could even have one word in this phrase be one font color, and then the other word be a different font color. And I'm also going to choose to highlight that text again and italicize it and underline it. Okay, so I've made several changes to the formatting of this first phrase. Now, what if I decide I want to do the same thing with this next phrase or sentence? I, of course, could manually do that, or I could click and drag to highlight the text that is the way I want it to be, and then I can go here to the clipboard group and click on the format painter, and then I'll just click and drag and release the mouse button, and look what happened. It took the formatting of my first bit of text and applied it to my second group of text. Now, on purpose, I selected two different colors for the font, and the reason why is because I wanted to point out to you that, yes, it works with colors, right? You may have noticed that the red down here was a different shade of red, but once I did the format painter, it changed to match the red that's in the word el. So it does work with colors, but it just takes that first color that you have and applies it. Another thing to know is that when you use the format painter, if you try to use it across slides, it can be a little trickier, but it is still possible to make it work. The last thing about the Format Painter I want to show is that it is possible, instead of constantly going up here to turn on the Format Painter, if you need to reformat a whole bunch of text, all you need to do is click and drag to select the text that has the formatting you want, and then go up here and double click on the Format Painter. So now it should keep it highlighted. Look at my mouse pointer. That is the Format Painter. So I'll click and drag on El Autobús, and it worked. And then I'll click and drag on La Bicicleta, and it worked again. And I'm going to go back to my second slide and see if it'll work on Avión. It did. So that's a little trick. If you want to be able to keep using that formatting over and over, just double click on the Format Painter. All right, so that's the clipboard group. Now you may notice in the lower right corner of the clipboard group, there is a little button. I call these buttons launch buttons, but the full name is something like Dialog Box Launcher Button. And what it does is it opens even more options and features. There are options and tools that just don't fit in the small space provided in a group on the ribbon. And in those cases, you can access those tools or features by clicking the launch button. So in this case, it's the clipboard. When you click the launch button, you get to see the clipboard. Anytime you do a copy or a cut, it stores that copy or cut in this magical unseen place called the clipboard. But if you're in Microsoft PowerPoint, you can click this launch button and actually see the clipboard. This is what is stored so that it's ready to be pasted. But again, it's not the word El Avión, it's the formatting. If you want to get rid of it out of there, you can just click Clear All, and it will clear it out. There are also some options down here below, and those are options for how this clipboard panel works. So I'm going to close that out, and I think we're ready now to move on to the slides group. Just as you would expect, this group is where you go when you want to create a new slide or make some changes to the slides here at the left. So let's start with the New Slide button. This is one of the more commonly used buttons in this slides group. So let's say I decide I would like a new slide between slides 1 and 2. I'll just click between those two and then click New Slide. If you click the top part of that New Slide button, it just gives you the default commonly used slide format. So I can click to add title, click to add text, and then add any of these other elements. If you click the bottom part of the New Slide button, you're not limited just to the default option. You can choose to have a completely blank slide or to have a name card, a picture with a caption. There's so many options here. This is one that I like, comparison. So you can click there, and it makes it easier for you to click to add text on one item and then another, and maybe a picture of one thing and then a picture of another thing. And so this is a handy button, especially the bottom part of it, so that you can pick the specific slide type that you want. Next, let's look at the Reuse Slides button. This is a handy button that makes it easy for you to take slides that you've used in the past and just apply them, add them to the current slideshow. So I'm going to browse down and go to this Best Ever Presentation. I'll click Choose Content, and it kind of opens up that presentation for me here at the right. I can see each slide, and I can be like, oh, yeah, this is a good slide that I'd like to add to the current presentation I'm working on. So I click Insert Slide, and there it is. I can then drag it where I want it to be in my presentation. Next to Reuse Slides, we have Slide Layout. So for example, I could click here on my second slide. It's laid out to have a title here and some text here, but I'm going to click here to change it to be a name card. So I've changed the slide layout. The next tool I have is the Reset tool. And the way this works is, let's say you choose a slide layout and formatting, and then you decide to make some changes. Maybe you move some things, maybe you shrink the area that is set up for that part of the layout of your slide. Maybe I'll change some of the colors that are going to be used in it. And then let's say I regret those changes, which I certainly do. I can go here and just click to reset this slide back to the original slide layout of when I inserted this slide into my presentation. The last tool that I have in the slides group is the section tool. So I can use this to add sections to my PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to add a section, but before I do, I need to think about where I want that section to be placed. And I would really like it to be at the beginning of my PowerPoint. So I clicked before slide 1, and now I'll click the section button and add section. So now, as you can see, I have an untitled section here at the top. I'm going to try to title it. I'll call it Intro tap enter, and now I have an intro section. Now I'm going to move down part way, and I'll click before slide number 4. I'll click the Add Section button and choose Add Section. I'll name this one Modes of Transportation, tap enter, and I've got a second section. Now that I have sections, I can easily go up here to the Slides group and choose Section. I could rename sections or remove them, but I actually want these. But I could collapse all, and they're all just bundled up and hidden. And I can go to the same location to expand all. You can also collapse or expand individual sections just by clicking on the collapse button here and the expand button. Now, one nice feature of sections is that you can easily create shortcuts to the different sections. All you would have to do is go to the section that you want to create a shortcut to and click on it and drag it onto a slide. So even though I am on this bicicleta slide, I now have a link back to the beginning of my presentation. So let's try it out. I'm going to go down here and click this small present button, and it takes me into presentation mode. And now when I go to the slide that has that shortcut back to section 1, look what happens when I click on it. It zooms in and I'm right back at the beginning of my slideshow. Now, if I advance again using the arrow keys or the space bar or presenter remote, then it takes me back to La Bicicleta. I'm going to tap escape to get out of that present mode. So I think this is a pretty cool feature to be able to easily and quickly link to different sections in your PowerPoint presentation. All right, we've done the clipboard group and the slides group. Let's move on to the font group. I'm going to click back here on El Avión, and I'm just going to click and drag to select some text, and that makes the entire font group basically light up and it becomes usable. And this works just like you would expect, but there may be some hidden gems of tools that you didn't know about. So as is common in many different programs, you can easily click to select a different font type if you would like. There's a fun one. You can also put in the font size that you would like. You can either type that in and tap enter, or you can just browse to the font size that you want. We can also bold or take bold off, italicize or remove it, underline or remove it. We can add a text shadow. Now that's a feature that I think many people don't know about, and it does create a cool effect. For example, I think this looks better in this case with the text shadow. So that's what that stands for. You can do a strike through. If you click there, it strikes through your text. Looks like I still have a little blue associated with this word or phrase. And then we have another tool here that lets us space the characters differently. So if I click that, you can see it's got normal spacing, but I could have it be tight spacing. It just brings all the characters closer together. I could have it be very tight or loose or very loose, or you can do some custom spacing. So all of these are really useful features. You may not have already known about the spacing or the text shadow, but now we're going to move on to some of the more common features. For example, highlighting, and you can click here to choose a different highlight color if you prefer. We can change the text color. All you would need to do is turn off the highlighter and then click and drag to select your text, and then go back here to apply a new font color. So I'm going to have the font be kind of light purple. I'll select my text again, and let's move on to the font case. So change case. I can click here and make this sentence case. With sentence case, the first letter of the first word will be capitalized, but the other words in the sentence, unless they're proper nouns, are not going to be capitalized. We can also do lowercase, or all uppercase. You can capitalize each word, or you can toggle the case. Some pretty interesting options here. I'm actually just going to leave it as is. Next, we can quickly increase the font size and decrease the font size. And then finally, there is an option to clear all formatting. And so that takes it back to the way it was before I started playing around with the formatting. All right. Now, just like with the clipboard group, we do have a launch button. If you click there, it gives you even more font options that you can use. I'm going to cancel out of that, and let's move right along to the paragraph group. And to demonstrate the paragraph group, I'm going to browse down to the very bottom of my slideshow after the last slide, and I'm going to click here on New Slide, and I'll choose Title and Content. And I'm going to click to add a title, and then I can click here to add text, and by default, this is a bulleted list. So I can click to add car, truck, bus. Every time I tap enter on the keyboard, I get a new bullet. If I tap tab, then it indents and I still get a bullet. So that's nice, but I can click and drag to highlight my bulleted list, go to the paragraph group, and if I choose to, I can switch to a numbered list. If I change my mind, I can just go back to a bulleted list. And in both cases, there's also an arrow to the right of the button. So if I click here on the bulleted list down arrow, it lets me change the type of bullets. So I can go to square bullets, I can go to checkboxes, basically, check marks, unfilled circles, just lots of different options to choose from. I can get even more options by clicking this button here. So there are plenty of bullet options in PowerPoint. Same with number options. You can see what they are here. Let's move over to the right. Also in the paragraph group, we can change the line spacing. When I click there, I can easily choose 1 point line spacing, or I could go to 3 point, which will really separate those bulleted items. You can also go to the line spacing additional options and make those changes. Another option we have is to change the text direction. In most cases, this is not a good idea, but if I want to, I can highlight part of my text, click here and change it from horizontal direction to, let's say, stacked, or rotate text at 90 degrees or 270 degrees. And again, we do have more options and you can customize those here. I'm going to undo those changes to get back to a sensible way to show text, but there are situations in which you would want to go to a stacked view or a 90-degree view, etc. In your bulleted lists, I showed you that you can tap enter and then tab if you want to indent a bullet. You can also use these tools here in the paragraph group. You can click this button to remove indent, this button to increase indent. So it's really decrease and increase. The next tool we have in the paragraph group is really useful, and I think many people don't even know it exists. This would solve a lot of people's issues with developing PowerPoint presentations. It's called Add or Remove Columns. By default, as you add information to your bulleted lists or anything else in PowerPoint, look what happens. The items just get smaller and smaller so that PowerPoint can keep them in the space provided. But look what happens if you go up here and click on this button and change from a 1-column situation to a 2-column situation. Immediately, it resolves that problem of the text just getting smaller and smaller. Now, if I were to switch it to 3 columns, that might be even better. And the way it works is as you add items to the list, it just automatically scoots over to the next column so that you can continue adding. We do have more columns. You can go higher than 3. You could do 5 columns, 6 columns, whatever you need to do to put the information that you want to include onto your slide. Okay, next we have align text. As it says here, this will change how your text is aligned within the text box, not based on the slide itself. So I'm going to click here, and if I choose top, notice that my slide title moved to the top of the text box. I can move it to the bottom, I could keep it at the middle. And as we're seeing over and over, there are more options that you can choose from. Okay, next we have some pretty typical common options: align left, align right, center align, and there's this option, justify. And what justify does is it ensures that the text is spaced so that it forms a straight line along the left and right edges of a text box. So if I were to continue typing, you can see what's happening. The text has a straight line along the left edge and the right edge. In this case, that doesn't make sense, but that's how you would make it work. I'm going to switch back to left align, and let's look at the last tool on the paragraph group. It is convert to smart graphic. Again, this doesn't totally make sense with my example, but I could click on this bulleted list to select it, and then I could go here and turn this text into a smart art graphic. And I could continue to work on that here and then X out, and it just changes the look and feel of my text. If you want to learn more about smart art, watch my videos on that topic. I'm going to jump back to the Home tab, and I'm going to tap Control-Z to undo those changes. Okay, just like with some of these other groups, I do have a launch button to give me even more options. Moving over to the right, we do have a drawing group. Now, for me, because of the small screen size I have, this group has been shrunk down and you just see drawing. But on your computer, you may see the full group visible to you. So what is the drawing group for? Well, it's for drawing shapes. So I can click to draw a rectangle. I can then change the shape fill and the shape outline color, and all of those changes are made on the shape format tab. And this tab didn't appear until I inserted a shape and then selected the shape. Okay, so we can use this drawing group to draw out those shapes. Now, if you draw more than one shape, okay, I've got 2 shapes now. Back on the Home tab, I can use the drawing group to arrange those shapes. So this triangle, I want to actually send it backwards a little bit. Instead of it being in front of the rectangle, let's make it behind the rectangle. So I'll click Send to Back, and now it's behind the rectangle. Another option I have is Quick Styles, so I can very quickly style this shape to make it look different very quickly. I can also change the shape fill this way instead instead of going to the Shape Format tab, the Shape Outline, and the Shape Effects. All right, let's move over to the editing tools. Here we can do a find. So for example, I want to find the word car, and there's some options about how I could do that. And then I'll click Next or Find Next, and it takes me to examples in my presentation of using the word car. In addition to find, you can do a replace. So find what? I want to find the word ground and replace it with wheeled. So I'm going to click Find Next. It found it. I can click Replace. And I could actually just do a Replace All. And every example of ground would be changed to wheeled. Another option we have in editing is to select things. So I could select everything on a particular slide, or I could try selecting objects, or I could access the selection pane. And this allows me to quickly click on an item and have that specific item selected. So that can be very handy. So this editing group has a few options to help you select or find or even replace different text or items in your spreadsheet. I'm going to skip the Adobe Acrobat group. Some of you may not have this. So let's move on to the voice group. This is a powerful feature that you'll find in Microsoft 365 versions of PowerPoint and perhaps other versions as well. And you can click here to select the language that you're going to be using. I'll just leave it at English. And then I'm going to click back on my first slide. I'm going to click where it says click to add subtitle. And then I'm going to click the top part of the dictate button. Learn common transportation words in Spanish. So as you can see, after clicking the dictate button, there was a little sound that played, and then I just started talking, and PowerPoint listened to my voice and printed the words onto the slide. Let's skip on over to the add-ins group. By clicking add-ins, you can search for popular add-ins or other add-ins that you could add to your PowerPoint functionality. So for example, if you want to add some AI tools, you can choose ChatGPT for PowerPoint, and let's see what that looks like. I'll click add, and once I opt in, I will now have a new tool on my PowerPoint home ribbon. There it is. I'm going to X out of that. Now, if you regret adding some of these add-ins, you can always just go to the add-in, right-click on it, and choose Remove Add-in. Say yes, and it will remove it out of your ribbon. Okay, let's move on to the last group that we're going to talk about. That's the designer group. And the designer group will only show up for Microsoft 365 users and a few others perhaps. It's not in all versions of PowerPoint, but I'm just going to click there on designer. And what this does is it's going to give me some automatic recommendations for how to possibly improve the look and feel of my slideshow. So I can look through these and say to myself, okay, I like how that looks. I don't like how that looks. So I can just click and it will make that change to this slide. Now I'm going to select my airplane slide. And again, I get some suggestions from designer and I can click to make those changes effective. So that's the PowerPoint home tab and ribbon in depth. I did skip a couple of groups, but that's because these are not standard groups. They're ones that I have added, and so they're not typical. I hope you found this video to be helpful. If you did, watch for future videos on other PowerPoint tabs and ribbons. Once you've watched my beginners and intermediate guides and the complete courses for Microsoft PowerPoint, your next step to truly master it is to go through each tab and ribbon and learn every feature that's in there. You're going to become a PowerPoint master. So watch for those future videos. In the meantime, I hope you found this video to be helpful. And if you did, please like, follow, and subscribe. And when you do, click the bell and you'll be notified when I post another video. If you'd like to support my channel, the best way to do that is to become a channel member. You could also click the thanks button or support me through my Patreon account or buy channel merch, and you'll see information about those options in the description below the video.